In this video, Germans, Arabs, and Koreans. Our trip to JFK starts here in Palmer at midnight. Nah, I'm just kidding, but I am including this night I spent in Palmer in this video because this is a quick little cool story. And don't worry, my plane people, we will get to planes soon enough, trust me. A little while back in the yes-tomorrow, the CSX L&N unit and the Family Lines Heritable units did the Dragon Ball fusion dance and combined together and got launched down the CSX Boston sub right past me. I saw them go into Worcester the day before and knew that today the pair was going to be coming back west at some point. Emphasis on some point. So early in the morning I went out to the Springfield Bridge because I thought the pair was going to be coming by in the early morning. After seeing a few trains up on the bridge, such as 2 CSX trains, CS04, and some Amtraks, as well as Amtrak 46, and also talking to the police, I decided to head home because I found out that the pair hadn't even left Worcester yet. If you want the story of why I was talking to the police, the story is right here on screen. Pause to read if you want some good SAS lore. After talking to some people in my Discord, link in the description, I found out that the pair would be heading out on IO-17 at sunset, scratch that midnight. So anyway, the B-roll you've been seeing was the New England Central crew finishing up their last moves of the night before packing up. Moving back to the Boston sub, M438 came trundling through town right around midnight. M438 stopped in the siding that sticks out of Palmer, which meant it was waiting for a certain someone who left Worcester 20 minutes ago to pass. I ended up positioning my car so that the high beams were facing the tracks to shine better light on IO-17 as it passed. Eventually the headlights popped out from behind the manifest and we were on. Roll clip. While I was standing there, the crew from the New England Central job that just finished walked over and stood there with me saying that they had just came to see IO-17, and that's them there blocking my shot. Okay, now onto the JFK trip. As per usual of my trips to New York City, I get on Metro North at New Haven. The first actually interesting thing I saw was a Metro North GP35R. I love these things and would love to see one move one day. So apparently there was a New York Yankees game that was happening that day, as you can see by these lovely people spotting jerseys right here. So our train was full of Yankees fans, which wasn't ideal. While pulling out of New Haven Station, I noticed an Amtrak P42 that was reversing through the storage tracks to go sit still for a month. We didn't pass another train, even all the way up to the East Bridgeport Yard, where several M8 clones stood still along with a catenary maintenance vehicle, and I switched sides to film some maintenance buffoonery. While passing the Bridgeport Power Plant, known as the Bridgeport Harbor Station, I finally noticed how the side of the building looks like it got bombed. I don't know how I didn't notice this on previous trips because I usually film the plant in some fashion while passing it, but I somehow never noticed how damaged it is, even though usually it ended up being in the background of my shots. Back in 2021, there was a fire at the plant which damaged the side of the plant and put it out of commission. The plant as a whole was decommissioned the same year and is set to be demolished at some point, although residents of Bridgeport are pushing back on the thought of demolishing specifically the Candy Cane smokestack that has been a staple of the Bridgeport skyline for decades. The future of the smokestack is up in the air for now, but as for the rest of the land around the plant, it is set for some major redevelopment projects. Okay, after doing a bit more research, I've realized that my info is a bit confused. Down the road from the main power plant in Bridgeport, there was a different power plant that burned down and that was put out of business. It burned all the way to the ground and now it's been demolished. However, the main power plant had a small fire in 2021 that was taking care of the sprinkler systems and it was decommissioned for other reasons. What I said about the smokestack was true. They're trying to redevelop the land and residents don't want it to be demolished because it's kind of iconic to the skyline. And this is why you do research before you put all that info into the script, do the voiceover, get into editing, and realize that your info is false. Anyway, here's a tip if you're a Railfan and you're taking a Metro North M8. Go to the first car and stand in between the frontmost set of doors and look out the little window that looks out the driver's cab windows. That way you'll always see trains coming and can always be prepared to film it through the door windows. Also, if you get stuck in a seat, try to make sure it's a seat that's on the left side if you're looking forward, because usually trains in America pass in the same way that cars do on the road, so you'll be on the correct side for those passes that you'll see on the left side. Amtrak Northeast Regional number 160 had a Phase 7 AN fleet as the first car, and I really don't know when to stop calling out Phase 7 AN fleets, because they're becoming more common and they probably shouldn't still be treated as a rare thing anymore. Oh, and if anyone was wondering what the view out the front window looks like, here's a quick clip I took of that. Anyway, there's a bunch more M8 clips and nothing to talk about, so enjoy the stupid little edit I made out of all of the boring M8 clips. passing the Mott Haven yard inside the Y of the split off for the Hudson line, I pulled out my camera and tried to film this GP35R, but my camera just kinda didn't turn on, and so I was left with this shot of us being already halfway past the GP35. Thanks, camera. Our train ended up stopping to let a Hudson line train go by, and after 2 more M8s, it was time to descend into the subway to take us over to Jamaica Station where I'd connect to the JFK Air train. The first subway connection was pretty uneventful, but when I got onto the E line, I was just sitting next to some random lady, nothing unusual there. But at one of the next stops, this guy dressed in all black with a black and white baseball cap pulled low came in and basically sat on top of the 2 of us, aiming for the tiny crack in between us. I had to scooch way over to the side, and the lady looked over incredulously at the guy. The douchebag guy didn't even say anything and just leaned forward on his legs and looked at his phone. Me and this stranger lady eventually exchanged looks at each other because we were both basically sat on by this douchebag guy. Eventually, I made it to Jamaica Station where I found some moving M9 train sets as we set off on the JFK Air train. And here is my failed attempt at filming some Long Island Railroad switchers. Unfortunately, the bumpiness of the air train had other plans for my shot. I passed another air train on my way over to Terminal 5 where I'd be going to the TWA Hotel Observation Deck. While still on the air train, I somehow managed to spot the Qatar Airlines 747, and I do mean the Qatar Airlines 747. There is only one 747 in the world that's painted this way, and even crazier is the fact that this 747 is used to transport the King of Qatar. So literally the first plane I saw was the coolest and most rare, and it's not even a good shot. Eventually I arrived at the TWA Hotel, which features some very unique architecture. Upon walking inside, I found a BMW Isetta, and more interestingly, there is a model airport that depicted JFK if it was taken over by TWA. And after that, it was down a tube hallway and out onto the main deck where my SAS Planespotter arc would begin. Just so you guys know, I took screenshots of the flight radar info screens of almost every plane I filmed that day, but I'm going to show all of those in the unedited video because they just clog up the main video and be in the way. Although I will mention info from the flight radar screens many times throughout the video. At some point I realized that I'd be standing here at the edge of the deck filming all day if I filmed every single plane that landed or took off here. So after these initial clips of the normal planes, I switched to filming the more interesting planes like this Air India 787 that was taking off to New Delhi. Next, I got stuck with a hard choice. I had a Condor Blue Stripe A330 from Frankfurt landing and an Uzbekistan Airways 787 taking off to Tashkent, and I had to choose which one I wanted to film. I ended up going with both. Listen guys, I don't know much about the relative rarity of these planes, so I got no clue which one to film over the other. Right after that, I caught a JetBlue flight doing a go-around for a reason unknown to me because I wasn't listening to ATC. Here's the flight radar screen to prove it. This Delta 767 pilot had a bit of a bouncy landing where their wheels touched down twice because he bounced back up into the air. Next, I took a cheeky little selfie of me at JFK. I guess it was just hard for the Delta 767 pilots to land on this day because the next Delta 767 had their right side wing dip down upon landing. Next up, we actually had a Khalida Air 747 that was coming in from Anchorage, and these guys actually had a pretty rough landing. Not only was one of their landing gears sagging really low, but when they touched down they also rocked over to the side, but with the 747, the lean was much more pronounced. Right after that was an Alaska Airlines 737, which has flipping Bob Ross on the tail. Next up was an Avianca 787 from Bogota. After this, I once again got stuck deciding between 2 planes to film, because look at this. Here on the right side of our screen, we have a Turkish Airlines flight taking off to Istanbul, and then a British Airlines 777 landing from London. And the Turkish Airlines flight was already mostly tooketh off, and I just ended up zooming in on the tea guzzlers. A bit later, I got another look at the Khalida Air 747 taxiing over to the cargo terminals, and I threw in a little selfie with the 747 as well. The next actually interesting plane was an Egypt Air 777 to Cairo, and after that was an ITA Airways Bluebird landing in from Rome. Alright, watch this crazy airplane crash. 2 767s crash into each other at JFK. OMG, that was crazy. Not clickbait, link in bio. HD Punjabi version, free, no virus, closed caption included. Install ad blocker. Hello, your computer has virus. Hey look, an American A330. After filming that, I noticed a Kenya Airways 787 on pushback from their gate. Landing next was an airline from a war-torn country that's been the battlegrounds for many wars and battles. It's a Swiss Airlines A330 from Geneva landing with a butter-smooth landing. This next shot ended up being pretty interesting. First, a Cathay Pacific 777 landed on runway 22 left, and as I was still filming that 777, a High Sky A330 Anyway. First, a Cathay Pacific 777 landed on runway 22 left, and as I was still filming that 777, a High Sky A330 overtook it as it was taking off headed towards Bucharest, which is the capital of Romania. And if you're wondering, no, I did not Google that, I actually know all the capitals and flags of the world. Literally name a country in the comments. Behind the Cathay Pacific 777 was a Viva Aerobus A321neo, I think? I don't know, I didn't take a screenshot of the flight radar screen. Next up was an ANA 777 taking off to Tokyo, which, fun fact, that's where I was born. And then it was the turn of the big boy. The next plane to land, and the reason I panned away from the ANA 777, was an Emirates A330, was an Emirates A380 that was flying in from Dubai. Here's the clip. Whoa, wow, I'm having a flashback. Remember that Kenya Airlines 787? Well, now it's taking off to Nairobi. Now, here's an ITA A330 coming in from Rome, but if we rewind a bit, we will notice that there is a Korean Air A380 lining up to take off. Well, he had to wait for the other A330 on the tarmac to cross the runway and pull in before it could take off. Here's the clip. Yo, Emirates, get out of my way. Anyway, the next interesting plane was this Qatar Airlines 777 coming in from Doha. Okay, with this Iberia A330 from Madrid, either flight radar is lying to me or this only in Madrid sticker is painted on only one side of the aircraft. To feel better, the next plane was a Lufthansa A380 from Munich. Here's the clip. Next up was some plucky English wankers from Britain landing in from London. That's the worst accent I've ever done. Next up, I wanted to try panning on a plane while very zoomed in, which had mixed results on this Neo 787 from Milan. And now for the aviation equivalent of a heritage unit, the Delta BCRF livery took off to San Francisco. Next up is a flight from my airline. For those who don't know, I own SAS Airlines, and this is one of my flights from Oslo. While I was ignoring the majority of the bajillions of JetBlue flights that were taking off, I barely caught this JetBlue NYPD livery, and the last plane I'd filmed from the TWA deck was the KLM 787. And after looking at the TWA Lockheed Constellation that's on display there, it was back to the air trains to head back to Jamaica. Being up on the deck was fun while it lasted, and I'm glad I got to see some different types of airplanes for once, and I got to check off some planes from my bucket list. The action never stopped, and I barely had any time to rest before another plane was taking off or landing. For some of the flights I filmed, I missed taking a screenshot of the flight radar info screen, so those won't show up in the unedited video. While still on the air train, I filmed another flight from my airline, this time being a 777. Unfortunately, it's very hard to film straight while you're in a metal box that's shaking like crazy and you have two hands on your camera. I was able to steady myself for this shot where a LIRR train goes past in the background, and another air train shuttle is coming at me, and I perfectly zoom out for the air train. And then it was back to the subways to make it all the way back to Grand Central. Don't worry, this video ain't over yet, we still got more railfanning to do. Then I was back to Grand Central where I'd film a Metro North M8 set pulling in from New Haven as I was walking towards the front of our train, which is on the left. Turns out that the first two cars of our train were closed, so I couldn't use my genius strategy of looking out the engineer's front window to get updates on when trains were coming. So I had to settle for a normal seat like a normal person, but I wasn't happy about it. This time I filmed the GP35R, my camera turned on to record it. And as you may have noticed, because I was forced to sit in a commoner's seat, I had to deal with this bozo's head blocking a bit of my shot. And the ride home was your standard Grand Central to New Haven ride where there were about 9 million boring M8s that we passed, so I'm just going to cover all the cool stuff and play every single M8 clip layered on top of each other. Okay, hello and welcome to the interesting presentation. First off, we have a collection of maintenance of way equipment along with the abandoned crane car that's sitting in the back. Next was a Northeast Regional passing us on the close track, which means that I can't see the numbers well, so I can't enter that into my spreadsheet. While we were stopped at Stratford, I noticed that someone parked a Power Wheels in an actual parking spot and left it. What a mad lad. And while pulling into New Haven Union Station, I noticed some CT Rail P40s in storage south of the station. Also in storage was a Phase 7 painted GP38-3 along with Amtrak 46, the Phase 5 Heritage unit. And that wraps up this extra long video of my trip to JFK. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a flight to catch. Thank you for watching and have an uplifting day. Get it? Because it's a video about airplanes and I said uplifting and planes go up and...